So I'm Sarah Bickley, and I live here in Woodcroft, and I've been in Durham 26 years, and I guess I'm retired. And this is a big project, but my mentor here, my inspiration was Stephen Feuerstein, so I'll let you him introduce himself.
Thanks. So yeah, Stephen Feuerstein. I am obsessed with removing invasives. Actually, not too much focused on planting and all the great work that you're doing in terms of
you just rip stuff out.
Right, I'm really good at destroying. And I'm a semi-retired software developer and author and trainer. What do? So I do invasive removal as a service, sort of like software as a service. So I've got a Prius V full of about 20 saws and 20 loppers and gloves and glasses to basically support events of like up to 30-something volunteers. And I now lead groups of volunteers in just about a dozen parks and preserves in Chapel Hill, Carborough, Durham, Hillsborough, removing invasives. So that's what I've decided. That's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to support planting efforts, replanting efforts. But for me, the main thing is to get rid of invasives. I feel really strongly that humans have to stop killing life on our planet. And invasives are one of the things that, mostly people just feel overwhelmed about how terrible everything is. And even if they know about invasives, they'll drive by a road that's full of wisteria or privet or something like, oh my God, it's too much. We can't do anything. So it's a very typical, I think, American thing. It's all or nothing. Either you go off alcohol 100%, or you're going to be addicted. Either you go to the gym and you run marathons, or you're a lazy slug. Either we get rid of everything, or we do nothing. And so most people do nothing. And so what I do is, what I realize is that invasives are a major force for localized extinctions of species. And that to me is the greatest sin that any other species can do, is drive another to extinction for comfort, convenience, and entertainment, which is what we do. We kill for the most ridiculous reasons. So I realized that by removing invasives, I can actually stop extinctions, and I can organize others to do the same thing. And wow, I don't know why everybody isn't doing it. I can barely stop myself.
He's a man possessed.
I am.
He really is a man
possessed and obsessed. So I go out 3, 4, 5 times a week by myself, with small groups, with large groups, just depends, and do as much as I can.
He gets rid of privet and wisteria and thorny olive and everything else.
Whatever's there.
Whatever's bad,
right.
He gets rid of it. Where we are. So we are in the Woodcroft subdivision, which is in Southwest Durham. It was a big subdivision built in the 80s, and it has about 2,000 homes in it. And this piece of land is owned by Woodcroft, as is this piece of land here. And that is Third Fork Creek behind us, which is one of Durham's creeks, and it's got a D rating. It's very polluted creek. And that's the bridge that flows over it. And so this is a half-acre of land here. And last year, in fact, it was last April, I got mad about all this privet. My neighbor had helped start the HOA's Eco-Friendly Landscape Committee. So she had said to me one time, that privet is everywhere. And I was just instantly, what is privet? What is privet? Now I know so much about privet.
Now you know.
So I realized that the privet down here last year was so thick you could not see the stream. You couldn't see any of this land. And it was about to flower. So I just brought my lopper down here one day and started lopping on this privet. And it was just great. I was like, every branch I lop off, those are berries that are not going to form, and trees that are not going to take root. So I started doing that, and my husband bought me this wonderful lopper saw. I just showed Stephen. And then, but soon after that, I heard about Stephen's Stephen's privet removal and invasives removal projects. I went down to one of them and met him. And that was when I thought, well, I could do the same thing here. And so over a year, we've had many volunteers and maybe 10 or 12 work days, and we have gotten rid of all the privet, which is amazing.
Yep.
And then we've had donations from Project Panto in Raleigh, which is part of Leaf and Limb, and we've had our HOA pay about $1,500 for native plants for us, and then we've had donations of plants. So we've got about between 250 and 300 native plants here that are going to stabilize the bank, that will help clean the water, hopefully, that will stop a bunch of privet from being created. that will hopefully create more ecosystem for wildlife and plants, and hopefully stop some extinctions from happening.
Yeah.
Hopefully create some places for baby birds to find caterpillars. We just found our first caterpillar ever 2 weeks ago. So that is the short story of the privet patch. And so we need to find a new name for it. But it's been a blow for natural landscapes and a blow for nature. And it's been a blow for community because people love to do this. They love to come together and work outside in this wonderful project. And it's been great. I just want more people to come and help us out. So on the banks of this creek, and this is a gully here that runs into the creek, and all the banks around here, we've planted a lot of coralberry. And coralberry is a native plant that Mellow Marsh in Siler City, they sell a lot of plants for stream repair and stabilizing banks and that kind of thing. So we got that from there. And coralberry, we have great berries for birds. And so that's all around the bank. We have a few other shrubs. We have some silky dogwood down in the creek bank itself, because that's going to help stabilize it, and those become big, beautiful bushes. We have lots of shrubs like American beautyberry, bottle brush buckeye, viburnum, and then we've planted some swamp milkweed, and we've already got some native boneset flower coming up. So we've planted Virginia sweet spire, which is going to be a beautiful flowering big shrub. And then what's been fun is that when we took the privet away, of its own accord, elderberry started popping up everywhere, and also buckeye started popping up everywhere, and also box elders. There's a whole grove right there of box elders. So, and hazelnut, American hazelnuts. There's a grove over there that came up by itself, and that grove over there was already there, but needed to be freed from the privet. So a lot of things have already come up. So we have we have also pin oaks. We have pin oaks that are this tall, but have cute little leaves on them. And we have sycamores, same thing.
Nice.
This tall and have little leaves on it.
Are you planning on doing any caging?
You know,
Like,
I'm after. Well, for one thing, people are going to see what landscape is supposed to look like, which is the trees that need to be here, the native trees. And if they see a stretch without privet, then they're going to get reset. So this is how it's supposed to be. And that is one thing that I really want. The privet is hideous. The invasives are hideous, and you know why? When you look at a forest scene or a landscape scene, the way you determine beauty is that your eye can see the layers. Here's the tallest trees, here's the understory, here's the shrub layer, and here's the lower layer. And privet tangles that all up, and honeysuckle and wisteria tangles that all up, so it's a big mess. It's a big miasma. And when you see the clarity of the overstory, the understory, the shrub layer, and the ground layer, that is beautiful. That's what we consider beautiful. And you need to have those invasives gone to have that. And we need beauty. We need this nature's beauty for our souls, for our mental capacities, for everything that if we did not have green, really good nature like this, we'd die inside.
We'd go crazy. Most humans, I think, especially in civilized environments, are insane. So I made a decision back in like 2011 when I first started studying evolution and realized how much we understood about life and how amazing it is that we have no right to kill other things. We're not better than other species. We're just different. Everything's different. And if we have to kill to survive, you kill to survive. But killing for what we kill for is an abomination. And I just want to stop it as much as I can. So for me, it's all about, primarily, it's about saving non-human life. So when people come and work on these events, often they can do trail maintenance, for example, or they can do invasive work. Trail maintenance is for humans. The more embedded the trails are, the more humans are there. I'd be happy if there were like no trails, no humans, definitely no mountain bikes in the woods. But invasive removal is all about creating a space for non-humans to survive and thrive. So that's why I'm doing it, most fundamentally. That also helps humans along the way, but that's not my main concern. Like this past weekend, I went out and stopped off at an area along Irwin and Cornwallis with a wall of privet covering wisteria, covering like 50-foot tall oaks, just killing these oaks. So in a half hour, an hour, I went in there and I cut the wisteria around them. I literally saved an oak that had a trunk this big.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I rescued that tree. I rescued all the forms of life that will live on it in just an hour. And I can't imagine a better way for a human to spend their time than to do that. So every time we go out, like if you organize a political event or a meeting and one person shows up or nobody shows up, it's like, I have failed. We have failed. Every time I go out, whether it's with Rob, by myself, with 30 people, I save life. And for that tree and all the creatures who live around it and on it, they have this great life for years to come. Like in that hour, by killing that wisteria, we're talking about vines like this big.
Mm-hmm.
That tree is going to be free for a decade, even if we never go back and cut it again or kill the vines. So that's fundamentally what it's all about to me, is saving non-human life. And if it's just one tree a day, one tree a week,
that's great though.
I'm a big believer in what I like to call direct and positive action. It's nice to donate money for things, but that is a lot of emotional distance and disengagement. And to me, what humans need most of all is to disconnect from the cyber world, from the world of bits and bytes where you can be manipulated by AI and deep fakes.
And algorithms.
All you have to do is put the screen aside, and suddenly AI is of no issue in your life. You cannot be manipulated by it. Anyway, so to me, the thing is, humans need to take direct and positive action in their lives, which means pick up the loppers, pick up the saw, go out and do something. And when they do that, their immediate gut response is so enormously positive. I do a couple of events a month with UNC students, different service groups, Alpha Phi Omega and Epsilon Eta at UNC. So I'll sometimes have 25, 30 young women and men, mostly young women actually. And
interesting.
Over and over again, afterwards they come up to me and they say, this was the best day ever, like of their lives. The feeling of empowerment, of accomplishment, of hope. And of course, it's a great workout. You don't have to go to a gym. I haven't been to a gym in 15 years. I plan to never go back. I can't even imagine going on a machine.
So people need community, and so this is a fantastic way to do community, to have community. This makes you feel so good. People give so many things to this effort that you'd never know that they could give. Things that you didn't know that they did, like the woman who did the GIS map. And her husband wants to create some kind of like a solar thing to pump water out of the creek to water this place. Now, don't know if that's doable, but he knows more about it than me. Wouldn't that be great? A little girl that I had toured around here showed me how to forage for something that tasted like lemon. And so there's so many things that it's all about when people come together in a good purpose.
Not online. And not
no,
online.
in person. In person, they find a community. It is magical. And it's so healing. And it's so meaningful. And you'll never want to go on internet again. It's getting to be a big thing to do, but I think that it's so, also people love to be together, face to face out here working. And I have two families that have young kids, and another family with a 16-year-old boy who planted that redbud over there, Matthew. And so that's wonderful too. Yeah. And when they start, so I wish I could get more young people in this program, because with the young children, I used to be a preschool teacher. So with the young children, feeling that this plant belongs in another planet. It's a good plant. I mean, continent. It's a good plant for a different place. But this plant, look what's underneath this Japanese honeysuckle. It's a baby oak tree. That is discovery, and that's wonderful. And working together is really good. So, if it were only me and I had done all this work, it would be covered up with Privet in another few months, right?
No.
But in a while, but soon, right? But so it's not about just one person. It's about building a community. It's about building outreach to getting people to come and do this. I'm always waving to people walking in the trail. I've gotten some high school kids and a lot of people like, hey, you want to come help us out? You want to see what we're doing? And people are interested and they're happy. So that's what we need to do. I need to do is build more connections, get more people to come. You've done a thing. This man's got, how many people do you have?
Well, I do none of that. I'm not interested in doing that anymore.
But your website.
I provide an opportunity. Yeah,
but
you have budget money in municipalities to handle the problem. And in fact, I was just talking to the folks at Chapel Hill, town of Chapel Hill, and they've actually seen big cutbacks in Parks and Rec and all their support staff. Yeah. And I think, and another thing that's going to happen with climate change is it's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Invasives are going to get much worse at climate
Well, they
change.
get worse, but also more and more humans will be traumatized and have their lives destroyed. So more and more of our resources are going to focus on saving humans at exactly the time when it's going to be more and more important to save non-humans. Which brings me around to my belief, which is that without volunteers, without mobilizing large numbers of volunteers, we will lose. We meaning
exactly right.
non-humans, essentially. I mean, a lot of humans will lose too, but so my focus is on getting volunteers involved. So the challenges.
Okay, well, definitely, gardening has been dominated by big box stores and magazines. And until about 2 or 3 years ago, my ideal of my yard was a Southern Living cover. It was going to have hydrangeas, pink and blue and yellow, pink and purple and blue hydrangeas, and a gorgeous green, emerald green lawn. That was really what I wanted. And then gorgeous flowers that were carefully arranged, and there were no weeds. But that is backward. That is a landscape with no food or habitat for animals or insects, which we need most. So now I am disabused of all that, thank heaven. And now I like a good old clump of sedge. I like a wildflower that comes up. I like a messy looking, stand of American hazelnut shrub, because it's going to feed the animals. And it's going to be habitat.
Have you gotten rid of your lawn?
I'm working on it. I've gotten rid of my 2 Bedford pear trees.
All right.
I think I deserve a medal for that, because it costs a lot of money.
Oh, they were big?
Yes, they were big. So people don't know that native planting is so useful. People are still in the paradigm of going to Lowe's and, oh, what a pretty plant, I'm going to plant that plant, which is what I did forever. And we're going to go and I'm going to water it, and I want my whole landscape to look like this. And there's all these many websites and books and things that tell you how to have a very artificial but beautiful yard. So it's hard, and big box stores resist this. They still sell Privet. They still sell all the bad things.
It's crazy.
We need a law that says.
So when I came here from Chicago in 2018. So I started removing invasives in like 2012. So I spent 6-7 years removing invasives without approval, almost completely. Had the police called on me several times.
Did you? Did you get arrested?
No, I came pretty close though. Twice.
I keep hoping I won't get arrested.
I don't think you will. So there in big city Chicago, even in the Midwest, they would look at me with suspicion and wonder, what you're doing must be wrong, I'm going to call the police. Down here, I would say in general, and I don't know if it's a southern thing or maybe because we're in the Triangle area, the blue zone of North Carolina. In general, people are inquisitive and positive. Nobody's ever said, what are you doing? I'm going to call the police. So I don't get a lot of resistance around removing invasives, but it does depend. So I was clearing invasives at Morgan Creek and Merritt's Pasture. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Love those places.
So I had lots of especially older people would be walking by over and over again, and I became friends with a whole bunch of them. And they would be very thankful and supportive and so on. And there's this one guy in particular who was, we always had good conversations. And then I think it was last spring I decided finally it was time to cut down mimosas. Mimosas are very pretty trees, but they're terribly invasive. They were growing out of the creek banks. I was like...
We had 2 big ones that we cut down.
Right?
Yeah.
And he came by and he said, did you cut down the mimosas? I said, yeah, they were pretty bad. Finally got around to it. He's like, why did you do that? I had crossed his red line. Oh. Those are so pretty.
So, he started... one of my neighbors, I had done a neighborhood post about invasives, and she said, Nandina's invasive, but I love my Nandina. So I wrote back and I said, I love my Nandina too. I really loved it. And I had it on my mantelpiece at Christmas. And it's so pretty. But the sad thing is, I looked over my back fence and I saw Nandina back there in the natural areas, and it is invasive. And what it does is it pushes out the native things that we need to feed our insects. And
well, not just that, but it's full of cyanide.
So it kills some of the birds. It kills one particular kind of bird. One bird. Cedar waxwing.
Well, it kills them most effectively because they gorge.
Right.
So you'll find them dead by the bushes. But
it's really kind of only that bird. But anyway, so I just had to sympathize and say, I know, and it hurt my heart to get rid of my Nandina. It was hard.
Well, I think a good, backup position when they're like that is just remove the berries before the birds can get
That's
to them.
right.
And at least you're not spreading it, right? The number one rule around invasives is stop seed propagation.
Yep.
If you're still generating more seed, you're not getting ahead of the game. So that what you've done here is virtually stop, on this side of the creek, any new seeds coming out. There's still a lot of seeds in there, and there will be for years. But
the privet seeds only last a year in the soil, I read.
Really?
Isn't that funny? But the roots
I
of
don't
it.
really believe that.
The roots are in there, though. I don't know. Anyway.
No, we want to do
Well, for me, I don't have the volunteer stream that Stephen has. So last Sunday, which was just 2 days ago, it was just me out here. I had my volunteer sign-up sheet. It was just me, but that's okay.
Right.
People were, but what also happened? But before that, one volunteer had made a whole GIS map for me. And other volunteers have gone around and put the GPS the big trees to put on that map. Volunteers have done so much. Oh my gosh, they brought us all these initial plants. So one day without volunteers is not a big deal. It's a big patch, and there's privet still coming back up, little bitty seedlings. So I'm going to have to get a special kind of instrument and do like this and try to disrupt all the little roots under the surface that it's coming from. So it's just it's a lot of work keeping the privet down. And then the other things that are trying to come in here. Japanese honeysuckle and other stuff. So it's hard to keep the things out.
Well, it's not a one-time event anyway.
No,
so
it keeps coming
my
back
view
and
is
back.
you get things in maintenance mode. So I've got about,
Yeah.
I think, 4 or 5 preserves I've worked in that are now in maintenance mode. So every couple of years,
Which is
swing back through and
incredible.
yeah, and do it. So the idea is that it'll never get as bad as it was. Like you just look across the creek, you see what it was like. So the point is to never let it get that bad again. And
it's much easier to maintain it.
Much easier, right? And the invasives grow quickly, but they're still plants. They don't grow that quickly. They're not running away as you go approach them. So
the thing about privet, though, is that a privet seed, in 5 years, it can become a whole new privet plant that's making its own berries.
oh sure,
So it's exponential increase. In fact, we talked to an expert and asked them, if we here in the subdivision wanted to get a handle and just stop our invasives, what rate now are they growing? And he thought they were growing at 20% a year. So that's just, it's exponential growth in these things. So that's why privet is such a huge threat. And the other.
For me specifically, my challenge is I only have so many times I can go out during the day. I'm semi-retired, but I'm older. I'm 65, and I can't. I want to do this 4 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I just can't do it. So I've already pretty well maxed out my calendar with events that I organize. So now so my challenge right now is to build more group leaders, like Ron, which I didn't. I didn't really do that much for you. You were able to take off, and again, it's not to say anything negative about what you've done. You've been amazing, but it's not rocket science.
No,
right?
it's not rocket science.
It's easy to do this.
Another great point I want to make is that I didn't know anything about this stuff. So anyone can do this. Anyone can do this. All you need to do is talk to somebody like Stephen or me for 5 minutes, get yourself a couple of tools, and get going.
Yeah.
It is not hard. It's really fun.
So I'm developing another set of group leaders so that I can have them do more and more events. So that, like there's a preserve called Brumley South, which is a TLC preserve, 750 acres. I'm working on the 500-acre side, and I'm pretty much the main person responsible for removing invasives there. They do others do stuff as well. So we are now doing 2 events a week there. We were doing 1 a month a couple of years ago at most. So it's really fantastic. But so what I'm doing is training group leaders to take those Saturdays so that I can be somewhere else. So we can just kind of build up that way. So that's one challenge, is finding the people who want to lead events.
Do it right away. You don't have to know anything. All you have to do is watch a couple videos about invasive plants, figure out what plants you're going to attack, and start doing it. One word of wisdom is that if you're going to cut down privet, you got to paint it with herbicide. You got to paint this stuff with herbicide, or it'll come right back. But yeah, do it. Go out and do it. Do it in your backyard. Do it stop at the convenience store on the highway and look behind there, and there's going to be some privet and wisteria, and go cut it down. That's my
a good
advice.
answer. Just do it. Specifically, I would say you can visit my website, rewildearth.net, or there are lots of resources online. try to find local people who are already doing it so you can learn from them before you just dive in. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, so it's nice to skip over the mistakes and get right to the right way of doing it. And your point about herbicide is really good, because for years I refused to use herbicide, and it's very understandable that people don't want to use herbicide. But if you really care about your native ecosystems, we have to use herbicide in a very targeted way, but we have to use it.
A really great way to start is to get the ivy off your trees. That's a great way to start, except in the summer because there's snakes in that ivy. But in the fall and the spring, get that ivy off your trees, because that's how ivy gets berries and gets spread.